Yeah, the gross anatomy experience, I think for a lot of people is traumatic. I didn't find it traumatic or depressing or anything. I thought it was actually very interesting. Um, for one, the cadavers were sufficiently dehumanized that I didn't have that sort of, I didn't feel a close sort of personal connection with our cadaver because it was a very sort of old, decayed, not decayed, but decrepit body that I think had been preserved quite for some time. So it wasn't like a fresh young person that, oh my gosh, that's a person like me. It was like really, it was like cadaver. I mean, it was a pickled, it seemed more like a pickled piece of flesh than like a person. And so there was that distance from the start. So I didn't find it too traumatic. Um, the smell was hard, but it was also very interesting. I'd never done anything like that before, and I found it really interesting to learn about anatomy. Now, I remember what I do remember is I had an uncle who was a physician. I didn't come from a family of doctors, but I did have an uncle who was a physician, and he was I don't know, 20, 25 years older than me. And I remember him telling me a story about his first day in anatomy, which sounded horribly traumatic to me, and I'm very thankful I didn't have to deal with anything like that. He said on the first day of medical school, everybody got a brown package, or this package in sort of brown wrapping and twine around it, and they sort of threw it on their desk, in front of them, and nobody knew what it was, and they opened it up, and it was like a dead baby, and then they had to dissect it. And he said that was incredibly traumatic for him and for many of the classmates, and they just sort of ruthlessly did it that way. And I think they did it intentionally to see how people dealt with that kind of traumatic experience. I had actually had a pretty good experience with great teachers, and they cared about sort of our emotions related to this. And unless I'm misremembering, I don't recall it as being terribly difficult or traumatic for me.